Hello and welcome back to the another episode of Daily News Quiz Analysis for IAS Prelims 2025. It is 22nd Feb today, and in this video we are going to solve some important questions which are very much relevant for your preparation. Before we'll start solving these questions, as usual, I would like to give you the introduction of this initiative so that if you are new to our channel, you will get more connected with it. I will be very brief today because we have to discuss many articles here. In this video, we are going to discuss three types of questions. The first set of questions which we are going to discuss here are taken from the current affairs. We take up the most important articles from the newspapers. We will try to discuss them. We will try to derive the possible prelims questions from those particular articles, and we will give you the idea what can you expect from in the exam from these particular articles. After solving questions with respect to current affairs, we will shift our approach to the second part where we will discuss few static topics. Right now we are discussing Indian polity, and in Indian polity we are discussing the powers of president right now, and we will discuss some powers of the president and derive the possible question from that particular topic. After discussing questions with respect to current affairs and the static part, we will shift our approach to the last part of our discussion where we will solve some previous year questions. So this is in a nutshell what we are going to do today. Now, without any delay or without wasting any time, let's come to the discussion which we have to make today. You might be very much aware of today. The talk is about the budget. Budget was tabled yesterday. In the parliament, and there had been many announcements made by the government. So, with respect to budget, there was huge discussion in the news articles today. There were discussions with respect to various schemes which the government had brought in. There were discussions whether this year's budget for the financial year 2025 2026 had taken consideration of everybody in our country. So with respect to that, whether it is good budget or whether it is not that good budget, there has been a discussion, and there is a block which is favoring it, there is a block which is against it. So according to those who are favoring it, this time the government has decided to curb financial deficits. The government has decided to favor the middle class people. They had given us to the middle class people, they had given income rebates. Income rebates, if up till you are earning 20 lakh per year, you don't have to pay any tax. You will be given tax rebates. So there are various changes done by the government with respect to taxing, and also with respect to the fiscal deficit, which is going to impact the economy. But at the same time, there are concerns which were raised by the opposition parties, or we can say by the critics, who said that there was nothing new in this year's budget, but it was just you know they had just expanded the schemes which were earlier existing there. And also they had criticized this move of the income tax rebate given to the middle class, that if they are not taking the money from the income tax, they are not getting this money, how they can go for the capital development? For that they have to borrow, and if they will borrow, then it will definitely lead to the fiscal deficit. So what is the reason behind that? And there are various other concerns raised by the opposition. But here, as this discussion is purely framed for your prelims preparation, we don't need to go deep into that to discuss every point, to criticize it or to favor it. But here, what we had thought today, that we will bring up the schemes which were mentioned in the budget. We'll try to discuss questions with respect to them, so that there are more chances now that questions would be asked with respect to these schemes. So let's discuss them one by one. So here, the first question which we had brought today is about the Pradhan Mantri Jan Arogya Yojana. So about this Pradhan Mantri Jan Arogya Yojana, we know it was launched. Basically, this scheme was launched in 2018. So this is also one of the one of the criticism given to this budget, that there is nothing new in this budget, but what were the earlier existing schemes, they had just extended them. So in this under this Pradhan Mantri Jan Arogya Yojana, it was introduced in 2018. In this, what the government is giving us, it is giving us the insurance for secondary and tertiary healthcare sector, for secondary and tertiary tertiary healthcare sector. Five up till 5 lakh rupees for the per family. And for example, in per family, how many members would be there? It is estimated by the government that every family will have 5 members, but there is no cap like that. If any family is having more than 5 members, is there any cap for that, whether this would be restricted for them? No, it is not like that. But why we are discussing why it is in the news, why is it in the budget, to this year's budget? The reason for that is, in this year's budget, in this scheme, the Pradhan Mantri Jan Arogya Yojana, the people who belong to the gig workers, you would heard about the gig workers. We had done many discussions over them, that they don't have any welfare schemes which are favoring them. They are not, they don't have any security. They are working on the timely basis, and they are working on very much temporary basis. There is no job satisfaction for them. There is no job security for them. For example, if anybody unfortunately goes through any accident, his burden would not be fulfilled by the company. So with respect to that, the Pradhan, this time it is the first time that Pradhan Mantri Jan Arogya Yojana, it is going to include in it the gig workers. So that's why this has been the talk of the town right now. This has been brought here because this about Pradhan Mantri Jan Arogya Yojana, a question can be asked in the exam, as it was mentioned in the budget, because it has included it has included gig workers also in it. So this is why we had brought this question here. Now, without any delay, let's solve this question and get more idea about the Pradhan Mantri Jan Arogya Yojana. Here the first question says, with reference to the Pradhan Mantri Jan Arogya Yojana, consider the following statement. First statement, PMJ is the world's largest public funded health insurance scheme. 100% correct, nothing wrong with this statement. It is world's largest public funded health insurance scheme. Second statement, it provides cashless access to secondary and tertiary hospitalization care up to 5 lakh per family per year. 100% correct. And in this, family is assumed of 5 members. But if there are more than 5 members, is there any cap? No, there is no cap for that. So second statement is also correct. Third statement, the scheme covers pre-existing diseases from the first day of enrollment. 100% correct. It covers the pre-existing disease. Fourth statement, beneficiaries are identified based on the socio-economic cost census 2011 data. 100% correct. So with respect to this question, all the four statements are correct. And why we had brought this question? Because there was a mention in the budget as gig workers are included in Pradhan Mantri Jan Arogya Yojana. So with respect to this question, the correct statement would be option D. So with this, let's move to the another slide and see what else was brought in this year's budget. What other schemes were brought in this year's budget? You know, you would have heard about Udan scheme, which is Ude Desh Ka Aam Nagrik scheme. About this scheme, why we had brought it, because in this year's budget, that the government has decided that it will include extra 120 destinations. The government will include, and the government has decided that they will include extra 120 sites, 120 destinations under this scheme. Ude Desh Ka Aam Nagrik. About we know about this is the initiative of the National Civil Aviation Policy, which basically about the Uday Desh Ka Aam Nagrik. It is a regional connectivity scheme. In it, those areas which are hardly accessible, they were connected with the mainstream cities, or we can say mainstream airports. So with respect to this question, with respect to the Udan scheme, we will understand more about this through this question. And why we had brought it, because under this year's budget, the government has decided to add 120 destinations more in it. So with this, let's solve the question and see what does the question say about it. So question says, with reference to Uday Desh Ka Aam Nagrik scheme, consider the following statements. First statement, Udan is a regional connectivity scheme aimed at making air travel affordable and accessible to the common man. 100% correct. Its main aim is to make air travel affordable and accessible to the common man. The scheme provides financial incentives to airlines to operate flights on underserved routes, including viability gap funding. 100% correct. The scheme, it provides the incentives to airlines, or we can say viability gap funding to the airlines, so that they will operate flights on underserved routes. So this is also one of the concern which was raised by the critics here. What if this initiative is for 3 years? What if they are not able to the people are not flying in these regions? So what will happen to this scheme? The companies may withdraw from it. So this is also one of the concern which was raised with respect to this scheme. Third statement, Udaan focuses exclusively on Tier 1 cities and metropolitan areas. No, it includes Tier 2 and Tier 3 also. So with respect to this question, the third statement is incorrect. Fourth statement, the scheme is implemented by the Ministry of Civil Aviation in partnership with state governments and airport operators, 100% correct. So with respect to this question, all the correct statements are statement 1, statement 2, and statement 4. So why we are discussing this? Because it was in the news, it was in the budget that the government is adding more 120 destinations in it. Currently it is operating under on 619 routes, and what is the only concern there, that as as the incentives is given to airlines to operate flights on underserved routes, and the results have not been so good, because even though it is operating on those underserved routes, the people are not flying on those routes. The people are not using the aircrafts. So what will happen once this scheme will end, once the 3-year time period will end? Whether will those airlines again go for this scheme, or they will withdraw from it? This is one of the concern which is raised by the critics here. So with respect to this question, the correct statement is statement 1, statement 2, and statement 4. And don't be surprised if a question with respect to Udaan will come in the exam, because it is mentioned in this year's budget. So definitely a question can be asked over this. Now with this, let's move to the another question and see what else we had brought from the budget today. Here the question is with respect to Jal Jeevan Mission. As you can see, the question is with respect to Jal Jeevan Mission. The question asks us, with reference to Jal Jeevan Mission, consider the following statements. It was back in 2019 when it was introduced, and its motive was to give the tap water connections to every house, or we can say to every rural households by 2024 earlier. But earlier it was up by 2024. But this year's budget, why we had brought it, in 2019, the households which were connected with tap waters were only 15%. In 2024, currently it is only 80%. So we had not achieved the 100% result which was proposed under this scheme. So for that reason, this scheme has been extended till 2028. This scheme has been extended till 2028. So we are going to provide 100% adequate drinking water to all rural households by 2028 under this scheme. That is why we had brought this question, because there was a discussion over it. So with respect to this question, this Jal Jeevan Mission, let's try to understand this more about it through this question. First statement, the Jal Jeevan Mission aims to provide safe and adequate drinking water to all rural households by 2018. 100% correct right now, because earlier it was 2024, but it has been revised in this year's budget till 2028. Second statement, the mission focuses solely on providing piped water supply to households. No, it is not focusing solely on piped water, even though the piped water supply is one of the focus, it is majorly working on it, but it is not the sole focus, because providing water through other resources is also under its domain. So this statement is incorrect. Third statement, it is being implemented by the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs. No, Jal Jeevan is being implemented by the Department of Drinking Water and Sanitation under the Ministry of Rural Development. So fourth statement is also incorrect. Third statement is also incorrect. Fourth statement, the mission promotes community participation and decentralization water management. 100% correct. It promotes community participation, that everybody would contribute to this mission. So with respect to this question, the correct statements are statement 1 and statement 4 only, and from the code given below, the correct code would be option B. Why we brought this question? Because there was definitely discussion in the budget about it. The upper limit of this time frame for this Jal Jeevan mission has been increased to 2028, because what we had proposed till 2024 will be able to give adequate drinking water to all rural households was not achieved. We had achieved only 80%. Now it has been increased from 80% till it has been increased from 24 to 28. This is whole discussion why it was in the budget today. So you may expect a prelims question from this topic also. Now with this, let's move to the another slide and see what else we had brought from the. Here the question is with respect to the fund of funds. You would have heard about Startup India. You would have heard about Startup India. Under this Startup India, startups, the government does not directly provide funds to the government. Does not directly provide funds to the they do not directly provide funds to the startups. If they will do so, then the government will be the partner of those startups. And also under this, why it is this startup is in news, because the government, for the startups, the government will not charge any taxation for the 3 years. For 3 years, they won't charge any taxation from the startups. So this is one of the reason, this is in the news, and this is one of the reason that the government is right now trying to encourage people to go for the startups, which is the need of the time right now. So with respect to this startups, how does the government provide funds to it? What does government do? Through SIDBI, they set up through government, through SIDBI, they set up this fund of funds. They set up this fund of funds, and this fund of funds is given to the alternative investment funds. And this fund of funds, it is given to the alternative investment funds. It is given to the alternative investment funds, and from there it will be invested into the startups. So this is not direct investment done by the government to the startups, but it is done through the fund of funds, which will given in which funds will be given to the alternative investment funds, and from there it will be given to the startups. So this is a whole procedure followed by the government in which they fund the startups. So with respect to this, we need to understand what this fund of funds is, what this structure is. A question about it can be asked in the exam, as it is the discussion of the budget today. So here let's solve the question and get more idea about it. With reference to the fund of funds structure, consider the following statement. A fund of fund invests directly in individual companies or projects. No, as we saw it does not directly invest in, but it invests in alternate investment funds from where this fund is invested in individual companies or projects. So first statement is incorrect. Second, fund of funds diversify risks by investing in a portfolio of other funds rather than directly in underlying assets. 100% correct. This is how it does its work. It diversifies risk by investing in a portfolio of other funds rather than directly in underlying assets. Third statement, the performance of FOF is solely dependent on the performance of a single fund it invests in. Totally incorrect. This is not how the performance of fund of funds is determined. So with respect to this question, the correct statement is statement 2 only. So with this, I hope you had understood what this fund of fund is. It is the funding done by the government in the startups, but it is not done directly to the startups. They use this mechanism in which through SIDBI they set up this fund of funds, and through this fund of funds they invest in alternative investment funds. This investment is done in alternative investment funds, and from there it is done into the startups. This is the whole criteria which is followed. And also with respect to startups, what was in the article today, why was in the news earlier, fund of funds was provided $10,000. Now $10,000, now government is going to add more $10,000 to it. 10,000 crore, sorry, not $10,000, 10,000 crore. Now government is adding more 10,000 crore to it, which will make it to 20,000 crore. Funds will be provided through this fund of funds scheme. So with this, I hope you had understood it, what was in the budget, and also about this concept. Now with this, let's move to the another question and see what else we had brought on from the budget. Here the question is with respect to the critical minerals. Government Ministry of Mines, they had identified some critical minerals for which the basic customs duty would not be there. Government has identified more than 20 elements. If we be more accurate, they had identified 24 elements for which there would be no basic customs duty. Why we had brought this? Because we are very much dependent on the imports of the critical minerals. We don't have the enough resources, neither we have the enough technology to get the what resources we have to harness those resources. We don't have the technology, so we are highly dependent on other countries, and especially the most dependent we are on China with respect to critical minerals. So for that, we have, when we import these minerals, we have basic customs duty. So what government has done, they had identified these minerals, for whom when we import them, this basic customs duty would not be included for those particular minerals. So this is why we had brought this question. It was in the budget, this year's budget too. So let's understand this question and get more idea about it. Here the question says, which of the following statements regarding critical minerals as identified the Ministry of Mines in India are correct? First statement, critical minerals are essential for economic development and national security, but their supply chains are often concentrated in a few geographical locations. 100% correct. Second statement, the Ministry of Mines has identified a specific set of minerals as critical based on their economic importance and supply risk, which includes minerals like lithium, graphite, and cobalt. 100% correct. Even cobalt was directly mentioned in the budget, so you can expect a question about cobalt also. Third statement, India's dependence on imports for money critical minerals makes it vulnerable to supply disruptions and price volatility, impacting sectors like high-tech electronics and renewable energy. 100% correct. So with respect to this question, all the three statements are correct. With this, let's move to the another topic. I hope you had understood it. Why it is in news? Because the government has identified some minerals on which the basic customs duty would not be, there would be no basic customs duty on those minerals. So let's move to the and also, for the sorry, which I forgot to mention here, that for the critical minerals, the National Critical Minerals Mission, we are following National Critical Minerals Mission, and under this National Critical Minerals Mission, the government will be allocating 410 crore. 410 crore will be the allocation to the National Critical Mission, and till now 3,400 crore. Till now 3,400 crore has been will be spent on it. So this is some important points with respect to the critical minerals and National Critical Mission and National Critical Minerals Mission. So with this, let's see on the next slide what question we had brought. Here the question is with respect to liberalized remittance scheme. So why it is in news? Because there was certain limit put on this liberalized remittance scheme of the RBI, that you cannot, earlier what was the limit earlier, that if you are traveling to abroad for any purpose, maybe for tourism, education, or anything, or you are going there for the investment, if you are taking money more than 7 lakhs with you, then you have to pay taxes, and those taxes will be called as tax collected at source. You have to pay those taxes. Now under this scheme, this year's budget, this 7 lakh limit has been increased from 7 lakh to 10 lakh. And also one thing has been added in it, that if you are traveling abroad for the educational purposes, then you don't have to give this much amount, then you don't have to give, you are exempted from the taxes. So this is why we had brought this question here. This is why this question is important. This question becomes important for you. So let's learn more about the liberalized remittance scheme. Here the question says, with reference to the liberalized remittance scheme of the Reserve Bank of India, consider the following statements. The LRS allows resident individuals to remit funds abroad for current account transactions only such as educational and medical treatment. To remit funds abroad for current account transmissions only such as educational and medical treatment. Totally incorrect. You can not only for the current account, but you can go for the capital account also. You can go for the capital, you can take funds for the investment also, but there is limit, but you can go for that. So this statement is incorrect. Second statement, under the LRS, individuals can remit any amount of money abroad without any limit. Totally incorrect. There is limit. Earlier it was 7 lakh, now it has been increased to 10 lakh. So there is limit as long as it is for the permissible purposes. So this statement is incorrect. Third statement, the LRS is available to all Indian citizens including NRIs. No, it is not available to NRIs. For NRIs there is another scheme. So this statement is also incorrect. Fourth statement, remittance under the LRS are subject to tax collected at source. That's what we discussed, at varying rates depending on the purpose and amount of remittance. 100% correct. So with respect to this question, the correct statement is option 4 only. So with this, I hope you had understood the liberalized remittance scheme also and why we had brought it. And also, there were other discussions or different schemes. For example, there had been the new definition for MSMEs, and it has been based on the, you can define MSMEs based on the investment and turnover. So for the investment basis, what would be the small industries, what should be their investment? It was earlier 1 crore, now it has been increased to 2.5 crore. If it is 2.5 crore, then it is small. For a medium, earlier it was 10 crore, now it is 25 crore. And for for micro, it is, earlier it was 1 crore, now it is 2.5 crore. For small, it was earlier 2.5, now it is, earlier it was 10, now it is 225. And for medium, earlier it was 50, now it is 125 crore. This is based on the investment. And also on the basis of turnover. For the micro, it is, earlier it used to be 5, now it is 10 crore turnover. If a company is getting the turnover of 10 crore, then it is a micro industry. If it is getting 100 crore, earlier it used to be 50 crore turnover. If it is getting 100 crore turnover, then it is small. And if it is getting 500 crore, then it is micro medium industry. So new definition for MSMEs has been also included. We forget to add question with respect to MSMEs, so we thought to discuss it here. So I hope you had understood every concept which we had brought today. The purpose of this discussion is not to discuss the budget, it is drawbacks, that is something for the means. But currently we are discussing for the prelims perspective. And trust me, these questions can be asked. These are the topics which are in the news. These are the hot topics right now. And UPSC has this habit to ask questions from the hot topics. So please do learn about them, do note down these questions, develop your own question bank, so that when your exams are there, you would just revise them and you will get connected with the current affairs, you will get connected with the static part, you will get connected with the previous year questions. Now with this, as we had completed our discussion with respect to current affairs, the topics which were in the budget, but sorry, we are left with one more question, which is basically about the small modular reactors. So let's solve that question, then we will shift our approach to the second part of our discussion. Here the question with respect to small modular reactors has been brought by us here. Why? The reason for that is because in this budget, 2000 crore for developing the small medium reactors has been provided. So what are these small medium reactors? In this 2000 crore has been provided. So what is this small modular reactors? That we will understand through this question. About SMR, small modular reactors are nuclear reactors that are smaller in size and capacity compared to conventional nuclear power plants. 100% correct. Second, one of the key advantages of SMRs is their modular design, which allows for factory fabrication and easier deployment. 100% correct. SMRs offer enhanced safety features compared to traditional reactors due to their passive safety system and smaller core size. 100% correct. So with respect to this question, all the three statements are correct. And why we brought this question? Because 20,000 crore for developing small modular reactors has been approved by this year's budget. So with this, we complete our discussion with respect to the budget, the important concepts which were in budget. There we left a few. For example, with agriculture, Kisan credit card. For that, the limit which was earlier, that upper limit was only 3 lakh, a Kisan can get credit from the banks. Now it has been increased to 5 lakh. And also collateral free loans, earlier the collateral free loans were given only 1.5 lakh, that has been increased to 2 lakh. Other schemes had been, few schemes which we left on purpose, because those basically in this year's budget, there is nothing new, to be honest. It is the extension of the earlier schemes, but you have to be very much neutral in that. So these are some important schemes which we brought here, which we discussed. I hope you had understood everything what we discussed here, and you would take note of these questions. These are going to be very much important for you, and trust me, many questions can be asked in the exams. So with this, let's move to the another part of our discussion, where we will solve a static topic today. Currently, we are discussing the office of the president, and in the office of the president, we are discussing various powers of the president. And in various powers of the president, we saw it is his administrative powers, we saw his role with the union, we saw his diplomatic powers. Now today we are seeing his military powers. What are the military powers he is enjoying? So with respect to the military powers, what he enjoys, first thing about the president, about the Indian president, we should know that he is the supreme commander of defense forces. First thing we should know, supreme commander of defense forces. So he is the supreme commander of defense forces. This is one of the power he enjoys. And second, war and peace are declared in his name. Second important thing about him is war and peace are declared on his name. So these are few important military powers which the president enjoys. So with respect to this, let's try to solve the question here. The question says with respect to this, let's try to understand it more properly. The question says, with reference to the military powers of the President of India, consider the following statements. First statement, the President is the supreme commander of the defense forces of India, 100% correct. That is what we discussed. Second statement, the President can declare war or conclude peace treaties without the approval of the Parliament. No, he cannot declare war or conclude peace treaties without the approval of President. That is incorrect. But the war and peace treaties are signed on his name. So the second statement is incorrect. Third statement, the President appoints the chiefs of the army, navy and air forces, 100% correct. Nothing wrong with this statement. Fourth statement, the president can deploy the armed forces within the country to aid civil aviation even without a formal declaration of emergency. No, there should be a formal declaration of emergency, then only he can deploy the aid to civil aviation, to civil authorities. So fourth statement is also incorrect. So with respect to this question, what are the correct statements? Correct statements are statement 1 and statement 3. So what did we learn with respect to powers of the president, with respect to military powers? He is the supreme commander. Second, war and peace treaties are signed on his name. Third, he appoints the chiefs of army, navy and air forces. So with respect to this question, the correct statement is option A only. A, which is 1 and 3 only. With this, I hope you had understood, this president of India, his diplomatic powers, his military powers as well. Now with this, let us shift to the last part of our discussion where we will solve a previous year question. Here, today's previous year question, very simple. This question was basically asked in 2009. Sometimes UPSC may surprise you. And about geography, one thing you should know that there is not much innovation happening. So what UPSC does, it asks same question in different manners. As in geography, what innovation can be done? And if there is any discovery that takes 10 to 50 years. So what they had asked, there are chances that they may repeat it. So sometimes you may expect very easy questions with respect to geography. And this can be also one of the reasons why now they are not asking that much questions from geography static, but they are asking from the ecology and environment. That may be the reason why they are asking much questions from the ecology and environment nowadays. Now coming back to the question as it was asked in 2009, let's see what question was asked there. It says, in the structure of planet Earth, below the mantle, the core is mainly made up of which of the following? We know crust, seal, mantle, sema, and then we have crust, mantle, and core. So the question asks, this core, it is made up of what? Usually, the core, it is the formula for that is knife, which is nickel and iron. Usually, it is made up of nickel and iron. As here, nickel is not the option given, so the correct option for this is option C. So with respect to this question, the correct answer would be option C. With this, I would like to say thank you to you guys for staying with me. If you would have stayed, thank you for watching this video. If you would have watched it, this can be the game changing for you. And also, I hope you had understood every concept which we discussed today, as it was solely based on the budget. Our aim was to bring up the most important articles which could be relevant for your prelims preparation. With this, I would like to thank you guys. Thank you very much.